Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's program to discuss the basics of owning and driving electric here in Maine. I hope that you all are having a nice evening and happy National Drive Electric Week. This is a national week of celebrating all things electric vehicles here in the US. I hope that you and your families are healthy and safe during this COVID-19 pandemic. We would have loved to have been with you for our annual EV ride and drive in Portland or South Portland, which we do each September and have for the last 5 years, but we appreciate you joining us on Zoom tonight instead. My name is Todd Martin. I'm the Grassroots Outreach Coordinator at the Natural Resources Council of Maine. NRCM is a nonprofit membership organization protecting, restoring, and conserving Maine's environment now and for future generations. For 60 years, NRCM has protected the places that make Maine so special. And NRCM harnesses the power of the law, science, and the support of more than 25,000 supporters all around the country. And our office is located in Augusta, just steps from the State House. So before we get started with this evening's program, just a few notes about the Zoom technology that we're using tonight. Many of us might be Zoom pros at this point in the pandemic. Just a couple of tips. So the first thing is this program is being recorded, and you'll get a link to watch the recording and share it with friends in the next couple of days. You'll get an email from me with the link. Again, you can control your video and your audio this evening. Please keep your microphone muted, and you're welcome to keep your video on, but you're also welcome to turn it off if you'd like. If you have a question for our panel, please type that question in the chat box, which you can find on the bottom ribbon on your Zoom screen. And after our panel discussion and before we go out into our breakout rooms, we will have some time to answer your questions. And lastly, but very, very importantly, need all of you to do something right now. We will be breaking out into 5 different breakout rooms this evening so that you can learn about 5 different electric vehicle models that are currently available. And I want to be able to place you in the breakout room so that you can learn about the EV that you're most excited about. So tonight we're joined by Mainers who own and drive a Tesla Model 3, that's Paul LeBlond, a Nissan Leaf, and that's Becca from Lee Auto, a Chevy Bolt, that's Jessica Hench, the Prius hybrid plug-in, that's Emily, and the Hyundai Kona all-electric is Gordon. Gordon Beck is here this evening. So right now, if you could type in the chat which of those EV models you'd most like to learn about, and I can copy and paste that into the chat. I need to pre-assign you to your breakout room. So if you can type in the chat which EV model you would like to learn about, I can place you in your breakout room. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Barry Woods, who is with Revision Energy, to lead us through our panel discussion. And we're going to start with a couple of poll questions. So Barry.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate all your help tonight in organizing it. I have a feeling it'll go smoothly. And I really want to thank everybody who's taking time this evening to learn more about electric vehicles and what's going on in Maine with this technology. My name is Barry Woods. I'm Director of Electric Vehicle Innovation with Revision Energy. I'm going to be moderating the panel you're going to shortly be hearing from, and I will take a moment to introduce them in a second. I did want to say that it is an unusual year, as we are all well aware. Normally, we have this event in person. We've been alternating between South Portland Community Center and Portland and Back Cove, where we have an opportunity to get a bunch of drivers of electric vehicles, as well as dealers from the local area who have plug-in models for everybody to have a chance to ride and drive. And usually it's a pretty well-attended event, and usually the weather the last few years has obliged. So as much as I miss that, in some ways it's kind of neat to have this we've been doing it for about 6 years. Paul LeBlond, who's going to be in one of the breakout sections, he and I have been co-captaining that event, and it would have been great to have had it again. I think it's kind of interesting to have a chance to try the technology and see how well it works. And I urge you to choose in the breakout session a model that you're interested in, because we really do have the benefit of some experienced plug-in electric drivers that you can ask questions and really learn more about what's going on, and particularly more about the details of that particular car. The only other thing I would say is that this is a national event. National Drive Electric Week is sponsored by Plug-in America, Sierra Club, and the Electric Automobile Association, and I think this is our 7th year. And typically, we have at this point over 300 events that occurred during this week throughout the country. Maine currently has several. Center for Ecology-Based Economy has got an online series of events this week, and like I said, we typically have ours as well. We are going forward with the help of NRCM and Efficiency Maine Trust. During the fall, we're going to be providing additional workshops that are going to focus on a variety of topics, some of which have yet to be determined, but I mean, they're going to be hopefully covering areas that you're all interested in, including what's happening with the Maine Climate Council and its set of recommendations, which are going to be very detailed and will be strategically focused, I think, in large measure on transportation electrification, because it represents 54% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the state. So it's a very serious sector for us to exercise some efforts to clean up, and electric vehicles are the easiest way of doing that. We'll be doing some workplace charging. We'd like to do some more dealership engagement events, charging etiquette, and other sort of advanced EV driver topics throughout this upcoming fall. So I hope you keep your antenna up. I'm sure we'll be doing a lot of social networking marketing of those events going forward. And I urge you to participate in any of those topics that you find particularly of interest. So with that said, I wanted to switch gears and get into the panel. The panel is designed to provide folks who don't necessarily have a lot of experience with electric vehicles an opportunity to learn about some of the basics, as well as with a Maine twist in terms of what's happening in Maine. And I think the breadth of the panel will provide you with a lot of information in addition to your experience with breakout sessions. So we've got 4 folks. I'm going to talk about them right now to give you some of the sense of their background. We're going to start with Heather Chandler, who's the founder and owner of the Sunrise Guide, who I'm sure many of you see in stores and with the phone app. It's a regional media company that helps Mainers expand their knowledge of sustainability in food, health, energy, home life, and more, while fueling the growth of the green economy in Maine. Her Green and Healthy Maine Homes magazines have been educating readers about electric vehicles for more than 5 years. Most importantly, Heather is the proud owner of a 2014 Nissan Leaf. And I also know there's a lot of content Heather provides in that magazine for folks interested in clean technology, including driving electric. Next, Alex Pine, who is currently the technical customer service manager with Rebus Maven, an arm of Generac, who does a lot of backup generator technology, and I'm sure lots of other things I'm not aware of. He's particularly involved in the solar storage systems, and he was the EV manager for the College of the Atlantic. More importantly, to me, Alex is a very experienced plug-in electric vehicle driver, and probably the only person in Maine who owns a Fiat 500e, which he had to have delivered used from the state of California. So to say that Alex is a dedicated plug-in driver would be an understatement. Then Gordon Peck, who lives in Northeast Harbor on Mount Desert Island. For the last several years, Gordon has been a member of Mount Desert Island's Sustainability Committee and has been running the EV infrastructure project for A Climate to Thrive, which is a nonprofit organization working on energy independence for Mount Desert and sustainability projects such as zero waste, solar, EVs, and other areas. The EV project has been installing public EV chargers throughout Down East Maine, which you're going to hear more from him about. And kudos to Climate to Thrive, who has actually translated its mission to actual on-the-ground installation of a fairly large number of level 2 chargers to help promote adoption in the Down East region to date. And lastly, but most importantly, perhaps, Anastasia Hedinger, who's the program director for electric vehicle initiatives of the Efficiency Maine Trust. She's helped to design and launch the Trust EV rebate program in August of 2019, and she now manages the overall communications plan for the Trust EV initiatives, as well as performing outreach to Maine's auto dealers and stakeholders and managing competitive solicitations for EV chargers and installation services. She's the lead staff person for the Maine Climate Council Buildings, Infrastructure, and Housing Working Group, and continues to support the Trust climate and policy initiatives. And she will be trading in her Subaru for an EV shortly, although you should know, Anastasia, that now Subaru has the plug-in hybrid Crosstrek, which I don't think you can get a rebate from Efficiency Maine Trust yet, because it's plug-in, the all-electric mileage is below 20, but I think they've been having a hard time keeping that on the lot. So anyway, really appreciate the panel. And maybe Todd, you can talk, well, you've introduced the breakout session, folks. So, so I hope you've responded to the poll, and we're going to start by having Heather introduce us to electric vehicles from the beginning, and then we'll go from there. So Heather, ready or not, here they come.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Barry, next slide. Awesome. I'm going to kick us off with a little bit of history of electric vehicles. I'm sure you've all heard a little bit of this. The first electric auto was introduced in 1830, and later in the 1800s, Lohner and Porsche began producing electric vehicles. They were prevalent for several decades. NASA used some of the technology to produce the lunar rover. And then in the early part of the 19th century, 80 years after the first electric auto was introduced, gas-powered vehicles really began to become the preferred mode of transportation. And by the 1920s, pretty much electric vehicles were not really used much at all. So we've come a long way in the last 100 years, as we hope you will see in the coming slides. So next slide. So I am the proud owner of this Nissan Leaf that you can see in the top photo here. I got my first electric car 6 years ago. It's a 2014, and after driving it for 6 years, I can honestly say that I would never go back to a gas-powered vehicle. In fact, I think I felt that way in the first year of driving my car. This is me getting ready for a parade in Westbrook several years ago. So here are several reasons why I hope you'll agree that electric vehicles are awesome. The first of which is that they have zero tailpipe emissions. So obviously this means reduced impact on air pollution and climate change. They are extremely quiet. In fact, have backup beeps so that people know that they are backing up. And they incorporate many of the latest safety and technological advances. Electric vehicles obviously are powered by electricity, which is produced domestically. And when you live in Maine, much of what we use is produced here in Maine. Obviously, utilizing this energy source, we are increasing our energy independence. And electricity can and frequently is generated sustainably via hydro, solar, biomass, wind power. And in Maine, our renewable power generation is about 60% of our electricity, making us one of the cleanest places in the country to drive an electric vehicle. And so even in states that have a high percentage of power generated from coal and other fossil fuels, electric vehicles are always cleaner than their gas counterparts. And finally, electric cars are really fun to drive. They're super peppy. They are absolutely not a golf cart. The 2020 Chevy Bolt can go from 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds. I have not tested that, but it's pretty fast. And this is about the same as a Ford Mustang, but with 5 times the fuel economy. So they're super fun to drive, and I tend to drive mine in eco mode all the time because it is so powerful that I really don't need to spin out of stoplights. And being in eco mode helps maintain my battery. So next slide. All right, so let's walk through some of the common hesitations around electric vehicles. So higher initial costs, though electric vehicles have had initial costs that are higher than many vehicles over the last decade, this is changing very quickly, as we'll hear later in the presentation. However, it is important to note that the total cost of ownership of electric vehicles is typically less than conventional vehicles. And this is in part because there's no oil to change, there's no radiator to service, they have very little maintenance costs. In the 6 years that I've owned my car, I've replaced the tires, and I had to take it to the dealer to get its, I think it was a 10,000 mile and a 20,000 mile service, and each of those cost $30. And I have 40,000 miles on my car now. So it's crazy how inexpensive they are to maintain. And then gas is also, I'm sorry, electricity is also much less expensive than gas, even today. Moving on, range anxiety. This is what we refer to as, or this is the term that refers to what folks often experience fear about whether or not their car is going to get them to where they need to go on their battery charge. But as we'll see in the presentation, today's electric vehicles commonly go 250 to 300 miles on a charge or more. And in addition, charging stations are becoming much more prevalent. My older model, 2014 Leaf, tops out at about 100 miles on a full charge, and it can go as low as 65 in the winter. And so I knew going into purchasing my car that there were going to just be times that I needed to rent a car. And in running the numbers, it became very clear that the amount of money I was saving on gas absolutely covered several times a year that I would need to rent a car for longer trips. And it's actually been kind of fun to rent cars, you know, drive something different. And then in terms of winter range decreases, this is definitely something that does happen. As I mentioned, my car tops out at 100 miles on a full charge. The low end is about 65, and this is in the winter when it's cold and the battery, even on a full charge, the battery might not get above 80. And then once I turn the heat on, it drops considerably. So it's something that you need to be aware of. However, range can absolutely be managed, and manufacturers have adapted these cars with features to help counter this. So for example, heated steering wheels, heated seats, the ability to preheat the car while it's still plugged in so that you're not using your battery. And moving on to charging times, I know we're going to delve deeper into this later on, but when asked how long it takes to charge my car, I heard from Andy Meyer, who might be on the call here today. Andy Meyer at Efficiency Maine likes to answer this question by saying 20 seconds, 10 seconds to plug it in, and 10 seconds to unplug it in the morning, which is so true if you have a charging station at home, which many electric vehicle owners tend to do. So if you have a charger at home, charging time really only comes into play when you're on longer trips. My charging station cost about $1,100 when I installed it 6 years ago, and that was the equipment and installation combined, and it paid for itself in less than a year of ownership based on what I was saving on gas. So that wraps up our basics.
Okay.
Sorry, Heather, I was muted. Thank you very much. We're going to move on now to Alex Pine, who's going to talk about the cars. Alex, here we go.
Okay. Evening, everyone. Yeah, so my section of the presentation, we're going to be discussing the various options that you have for plug-in vehicles. That's both battery, full electric vehicles, as well as plug-in hybrids. So, you know, it's like the hybrid that you see around town, except it has a plug. And I'm also going to touch a little bit on sort of what's happening in the future here, in the near future, and also some of the new opportunities that have been opened up with electric vehicles in terms of changing how we view ownership of a car. So reiterating some of the same points that Heather brought up, we have battery electric vehicles. So these are pure electric, no gas engine. It's what I own and drive. Again, all electric, no gas, no noise, no maintenance hassle. Like Heather, all I've ever had to do for my cars is replace tires. Actually, the first time I had a flat on my current car, I was like, man, this is such a pain in the neck. And then I realized, well, you haven't even gone to a service station in a year at this point. This is the first time you've had to bring the car in the shop, so not a big deal. Battery electric vehicles have no tailpipe emissions, and they're super fun to drive. And there's a variety now of different battery sizes, different models, based on what your needs are and what your budget is. So, if you drive very little, maybe you could get a cheaper plug-in vehicle that has slightly less range, but it's more than enough for you. We also have plug-in hybrid vehicles. So this is a mix of electric and a fuel-efficient gasoline conventional engine. You have less operating costs and less fuel use than a conventional vehicle. You have that battery for lower emissions, but you have the fuel for extra flexibility. So if you're going on a longer road trip, you can still use conventional fueling infrastructure to fill up your car. And again, just like the battery electric vehicles, we have multiple options here. You can get cars that have a very small gas tank and a really big battery, or a smaller battery and a bigger gas tank. And it really just depends on what your needs are. And for all of these vehicles, we've started to sort of look at the way of owning a car. Traditionally, most people buy a car, either new or used. Some people lease, but that really was only, feasible if you were, a business, or you had, special tax reasons. It didn't make a lot of sense for a lot of us. But that's changed with electric vehicles. Before the car that I have now, I had a leased electric car. And what was unique about it is I leased the car, but then I just paid a subscription fee for the battery in it. So, we're looking at these new ways of having a vehicle that are maybe a little outside of what we've considered in the past, because this technology is opening new doors. Electric cars, there's a fantastic used market. I'll touch on that later. With the technology changing so quick, a lot of electric car owners, they were early adopters, and so now they're moving on to the next greatest thing. And so there's used vehicles out there that are fairly inexpensive and offer just as good of performance as some of the new models. And then, last, we have great manufacturer and government incentives that are available, and we're going to touch on that later in the presentation. But again, it makes it much easier to own an electric vehicle than ever before. Next slide, please. So we're first going to talk about the new battery electric vehicles that you can get. These, again, are full electric. I just picked models that I know people who own these, and I've seen them around town. So we have the Hyundai Kona, which just came out in the past year or two. It has a 258-mile range rated from the EPA. And once you factor in the incentives here in Maine, federal and state, you can get a base model for about $27,000, so fairly affordable. And it's a small compact SUV. Next, we have the Nissan Leaf, and this is the second generation Nissan Leaf. So that car has been around since 2011, and now they've updated it, and there's a new model. This model's kind of fun in that you have multiple battery packs you can choose. So you can get one that has a range of 150 miles, which of course is less expensive, and then you can get a deluxe model that has 226 miles of range. The base model, once you factor in incentives, state and federal, comes out to about $22,000. And again, there's great manufacturer deals, so you may be able to get it for even less. There's the Kia Niro EV. Now, this is I think, a unique car in the fact that it's sold as a conventional vehicle and a plug-in hybrid and an electric car, a fully electric car. So you can actually sort of compare there, and it's all the same body style. Again, compact SUV, 239 miles of range. Well appointed, and again, with incentives, you can get it for $29,000. So another really great option. we have the Chevy Bolt, a very popular long-range electric car, came out in 2017, 2016, or in that time frame. And it has a 259-mile range that just recently got upped. I think it used to be about 230. So, improvements in battery capacity and technology. Right now, you can get it with a state incentive at $34,000. Now, if you notice, that is a little higher than the rest. Well, that's because there's no longer a federal subsidy for this car. They've sold so many of them. Chevy has sold so many electric vehicles that they actually ran out of their subsidy money. Now, that doesn't mean that you still can't get great manufacturer deals on that. And I've, looked at the local market here, and many were down in the mid to high 20s once you factored in the state subsidies. So, a very attractive model there, proven. It's been on the market for a little while. So you have a really great option there, small hatchback. Next is the Hyundai Ioniq. It has a 124-mile range, so a little bit of a lesser range, but it's also a lesser price. Well appointed. I've heard great things from folks, and I've also heard that you can get a really fantastic lease deal on this. So, if you wanted to sort of check out an electric car but maybe not commit to owning one, this would be a great option for that. And then we have the Tesla Model 3. Everyone's probably heard of Tesla at this point. They're definitely a leader in the electric car field. And that's available here. Again, Tesla has sold so many electric cars that they don't have a federal subsidy anymore. So with the state subsidy, you're down to a $36,000, more like $37,000 base price, but it's a high performance sedan. And I believe it actually outsells most import performance sedans today. It's the most popular performance sedan in the U.S. So a very popular model, very high performance. I can't count the number of times that I've had my head glued to the back of the seat. Well, I have friends show me how fast their car can go. So it's a great vehicle and a great option if you want something that's a little more zippy. Next slide, please.
Alex, could I ask you one question?
Oh.
Is this going to be?
Oh.
Is this going to be available? These slides afterwards?
I believe they will be, and we're also going to have the recording come out. So.
Oh, good.
And we're going to hold all of our questions until the end of the panel.
Yeah, no, it was just, should I be writing notes furiously or no?
And
Okay.
I'll also mention all of these numbers are on Efficiency Maine's website. So you can just go on there and they have a great buying guide that you can view and see all of these numbers. That's where I got them from. Let's keep going here. I got the 2-minute mark. I'm talking too much. So let's talk about the new plug-in hybrids that you can get. There's the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, the Toyota Prius Prime. It has a 25-mile all-electric range, and then you revert over to the gas engine. Ford Fusion, again, similar all-electric range. That's been out for a little while. If you have kids or a big family, you have the Chrysler Pacifica hybrid that has a 32-mile all-electric range, and then again, it reverts back to the gas engine. The Kia Niro, again, you can get that in a plug-in hybrid and an all-electric model with 26 all-electric range. There's the Honda Clarity plug-in hybrid. This one has a little more all-electric range, so maybe you do a little more driving. What I advocate for is if you do decide to go for a plug-in hybrid, find one that has an electric range that maybe fits your daily needs. And that way you're just going to avoid using gasoline except on those longer trips when you feel like you really need it. And then, like the Niro, the Hyundai Ioniq is also available as a plug-in hybrid as a counterpart to the all-electric version. That one has a 30-mile all-electric range, and again, a lesser price to sort of reflect that here. It's a good deal. And again, I've heard people get great lease deals on these cars, so certainly worth considering. Next slide, please. Okay. Oh, did you skip a slide, Barry? I think we might have missed one. Oh, I guess it didn't make it through. Oh, well.
Let's see. Is that the one you were looking for?
no, there was the used slide. That didn't make it in there. Oh, well. EV forecast, as you can see on this graph, there's many different companies here that are pledging to produce part or all of their vehicles as all electric or plug-in hybrid. So very exciting times here, and you can see it's going to happen pretty rapidly. Okay, and then, future plans here. We're seeing more electric vehicles in larger segments such as pickup trucks. We're also seeing electrification with commercial vehicles like semi trucks. So it's not just passenger vehicles that we're seeing here. Another exciting thing that I've seen as a car person here is having vintage cars get transplanted with electric motors. So now you can get, a car that has all that class, but with no gasoline. And you can see, as well, again, more growth here in the electrified sector. So, we're going to see price parity soon. And California is actually looking to stop the sale of gasoline vehicles in the near future. One last thing I want to touch on is that, the electric car, it has this big battery in it. You can use that battery for other things. You may be able to one day link it up to your home. You could use it for providing backup power or leveling loads in your home. And so it gives you more control, not only of, your costs while driving, but your costs while that car is parked at home. And you can use that battery resource for other things. Now, the slide that didn't make it in, I'll just touch on that really briefly. There's plenty of great used vehicles out there, and they're very affordable, especially coming off lease. They often have low mileage, and there's great resources here in the state, dealers that carry used models at very affordable prices. So that's also well worth checking out.
Thanks, Alex. That's a good, that's I think a really good overview, and appreciate your taking time to kind of walk people through the models, and hopefully that will help them in the breakout sessions too. So, and I'm sorry, I don't know what happened to that slide. That could be on me. So we're going to have Gordon Beck start talking a little bit about what's happening on the sort of the flip side of the same coin, because these cars are different than gas cars. They need to have some type of charging station resource, whether it's at home or elsewhere. So Gordon, why don't you talk to folks about what you know about this area?
Thank you, Barry. Well, you're looking for an EV, you're considering the price and the range and the different models, and inevitably you'll have some questions about charging up that car and potentially that fear of range anxiety. So I'm going to answer some of those questions that you might have, and I think you'll find after a few minutes of this presentation that range anxiety is quickly becoming a thing of the past when it comes to electric vehicles. So let's start off with how long it takes to charge an EV. Next slide, please. Essentially, there is several factors. If you've got one of the plug-in hybrids, you've got a smaller battery. If you get one of the long-range Teslas, you've got a big battery. Battery size determines, generally speaking, the range of your EV, but it's like a gas tank. The bigger the gas tank, the more it takes to fill it up. Same with the battery. So that's going to affect how long it takes. All the different EV models, generally, there is a range of acceptance rates, how much electricity they can accept to charge their battery. And that'll vary from the plug-in hybrids, which have generally low acceptance rates, to most of those mainstream models like the Bolts and the Leafs now, and the Kona and the Teslas have higher acceptance rates. And then there's the charging source, whatever the charger that you're using to charge your car has. There are different types, and we'll get into those. There are different power outputs. So those are three of the key things that are really going to end up determining how long is it going to take to charge your car. One thing to keep in mind is that on 80 to 90% of all EV charging is done at home. Almost everybody who has an EV, or at least 80, 90% of them, have some form of charging at home. And that's where, you will find your sweet spot for the type of charger you need and for your car and your needs and the range that you have and use. And I will mention, we're in Maine. Heather mentioned the range impact of weather in cold weather. There's a bit of a factor in charging as well. In extreme heat or extreme cold, it can take a little longer to charge. But the manufacturers are beginning to find ways to tackle that with things like battery heaters. And every year, every 6 months practically, the technology is changing and making that less. So those are essentially the factors on how long it might take to charge your EV. Next slide, please. When it comes to the cost, here's a little comparison that the Department of Energy comes out with. Heather mentioned earlier that it costs less to drive an EV, certainly to operate it from the service point of view. But if you compare in the state of Maine, the average price of a gallon of gasoline and generally the cost of a kilowatt hour of electricity, and you say, how far can either a gas car or an EV car go on a gallon? That's where your cost comparison is. The main takeaway here is it's going to cost less, pretty much regardless of what you do. So next slide, please. There are three different real levels of charging, types of charging. Level one is the most basic charging, where you plug into a household outlet, and almost every EV that's coming out on the market now has a level one charger that you can plug in anywhere. I look at it as a fallback. If you're out somewhere, as long as you can find an AC charger, you'll be able to charge up. It'll be very slow. You're only going to get 4 or 8 miles perhaps per hour because you're using a typical household outlet. Level two charging is what I would say is currently the sweet spot. It's the most common level of charging that's out in public charging. It's the most homes with EV drivers have a level two charger. You can buy them fairly cheaply, as low as say $400 or so on Amazon or whatever, and then it depends on your individual home situation for installation. There are models that you can plug into, say, a dryer plug that has 240 volts. But most of the time it's better to hardwire them, and it's not going to cost that much. I think Heather mentioned $1,100. Mine was actually $1,200. But there is a range of level two chargers, but generally speaking, what you'll find in most places are ones that put out about 7.2 kilowatts of power. And if you think about it, most of the EVs that you'll be looking at in the mid-range full electric have an acceptance rate these days of at least 6.6 to 7. And some of the Tesla models and some of the higher end EVs have much higher acceptance rates, and therefore can match up potentially better with the higher powered level two chargers. But the bottom line is, for a level two charger, on average, an hour of charging is going to get you 25 miles of range. And since most of your charging is going to be done at home, if you think about it, you plug in your car in your 10 seconds of plug-in time, and the next morning, 8-10 hours later, whatever it may be, you've got a full 200, 300 miles, well, maybe not 300, but you're up there. It works well. And that brings us to DC fast charging, which is the most expensive and the fastest, as the name indicates. These are the chargers that you'll find out on the fuel plazas on 95, for example. And most of these models that Alex mentioned earlier of EVs all have the capability of accepting fast charging. It's really nice. It's really fast. The rule of thumb is, and again, it depends on your battery size, et cetera, but you can get about 80% of your battery capacity in as little as 20 minutes at some of these chargers. So those are really great for long distance traveling. The level two chargers I'll make one last mention on is generally there's what's called the universal plug, or the J1772 connector. And almost every public level two charger out there has this universal plug, and virtually every EV in the States uses the same plug. Tesla is the exception. Tesla has their own proprietary system, and I'll mention that a little later. They also have their own network of chargers out there. Next slide, please. So here's a look at a map I got from the DOE. All those little green dots in the state of Maine are where there are public level 2 charging locations and DC fast charging locations. And as you might expect, more chargers are out down in the more populous areas, the heavily traveled areas, fewer up in the down east area, but there are more coming. And Climate to Thrive, Efficiency Maine, we're all working on getting more chargers out into rural areas and kind of creating a network so that, you know, once again, you won't have range anxiety. But the key thing to me is DOE is saying there are 455 charging outlets, plugs available in the state of Maine right now. And I got this slide, I guess, a week or so ago. I know there are at least 500 plugs already in Maine, and there's just more and more every week. Next week, slide, please. Another map comes from a company called PlugShare, which makes it a wonderful app for EV drivers. You download it on your phone. You can locate charging stations, you know, pretty much anywhere you want to go. On this map, the green ones are public charging stations. There's a lot of detail when you click on those icons. Orange are the DC fast chargers, and PlugShare is kind of a crowdsourced app where an EV driver can, you know, plug into one of these stations, go on the app and say, hey, this is great. Thank you very much, host. Or, you know, charger 1's not working and charger 2 is, or whatever. But there's a lot of detail, and it just makes driving EVs out in the hinterlands so much easier. This slide shows you you can go online, you can go to plugshare.com. It's actually a lot of fun to check out what's going on out there and what people are saying. And the DOE has that alternate fuels locator. There are plenty of other apps out there that EV drivers use to find stations. ChargePoint has their own app, Charge Hub, EVgo. There's a variety. PlugShare is really one of the best ones. And again, Tesla has their own proprietary locator system. So if you're thinking about a Tesla, you're going to find their ecosystem works very well for you as Teslas. And Teslas can use all these other stations that you can find elsewhere. Next slide, please. So when you are out there looking at your EVs, you're also going to find a variety of charging stations out and about. And the charging picture in Maine is just getting better and better. More locations throughout the state, downtown areas, the fast chargers on the interstate corridors, shopping areas. Hannaford's putting in a ton of things. These not-for-profits like Efficiency Maine and Climate to Thrive and CEBE in Western Maine are all working towards building out this infrastructure for the state. So I think you'll find that range anxiety is rapidly disappearing in that rearview mirror.
Thanks, Gordon. That was great. Exciting times to be in the infrastructure world. And I appreciate your reviewing where we are in Maine and showing the map. And I think we all look forward to seeing that map get covered with green dots here shortly. I was going to switch gears to Anastasia Hediger from Efficiency Maine, who's got some money to give to folks, which always makes it an interesting topic. Seen what some of the cars are like, courtesy of Alex, and Anastasia is going to talk about incentives that they have for the vehicles, as well as some programs for the charging station. So Anastasia, I'm going to leave it up to you. You may be muted.
Sorry, everybody. I've got a double sound system, double mute. But thank you, Barry, and thanks so much to all the other panelists for giving that awesome foundation for EVs. I feel like I don't have much to explain about the benefits and all the good progress that's been made as far as the technology. And again, I work for Efficiency Maine. Next slide, please. Focusing on the EV initiatives. As quick background, the Efficiency Maine Trust promotes energy conservation in the state for all customer groups, all energy types, and in all areas of Maine. We do this by providing rebates, financing, technical information on our website, a trusted network of vendors, and that network of vendors who install EV chargers is growing as well. And we're excited to be administering some EV programs to kind of accelerate that progress in the state. Next slide, please. And this table just gives you a high-level summary of what our incentives look like. The column on the far left shows you kind of the average incentive that most Mainers are getting, which is $2,000 off of an all-electric vehicle that relies on no gas. And then we have a $1,000 incentive for plug-in hybrid electric vehicles that have an all-electric range of at least 20 miles. And that's what Barry mentioned earlier. The Subaru Crosstrek plug-in hybrid, for example, doesn't quite meet that criteria. We've also got enhanced incentives available for low-income Maine residents who receive LIHEAP benefits. You could qualify for that enhanced rebate. And then this heftier incentive on the far right is for governmental entities and tribal governments who are looking to add EVs to their fleets and things like that. Most of these rebates that we administer come straight through the dealership, and that comes off instantly at the time of your purchase or lease, and they do apply to leases as well. So I'll talk a little bit about additional incentives and discounts that you can get, but you're looking at, if you go through the kind of conventional pathway, thousands of dollars off right at the time of sale. And then we do have a pathway available for vehicles that don't have a franchise dealership in the state. Right now, the only manufacturer that applies to is Tesla. So you'll see on our website, we do have a rebate for Tesla models that are below $50,000. That's our price cap across the board. And you can kind of look into how you will apply for that rebate, but that's the one that comes after the purchase. Everything else is instant, and you don't have to do any paperwork in advance or after. Next slide, please. This is just a quick snapshot of our program after a full 13 months of being up and running. We launched last August of 2019, and so far we've given out more than 630 rebates. That's probably already gone up since I pulled that data point. About 336 all electric to almost 300 plug-in hybrids. That kind of gap is closing, and we've seen a lot of growing interest in the plug-in hybrids recently. We suspect because those models, manufacturers have been coming out with slightly larger plug-in hybrids and crossovers, and that's appealing to folks, and they tend to be a little cheaper than the all-electric models, although that's evolving as we speak as well. To get the rebate through our program, you have to purchase or lease your vehicle through a participating dealer, and right now we have 50 of them signed up, and that pretty much covers every dealer in the state that is certified to sell EVs. There are a few remaining. We just signed 2 more up last week. But so if you're motivated to make a purchase and for some reason your dealer isn't signed up for the program, you are more than welcome to encourage them to apply, and we can get them signed up really fast. And you can check out the list of dealers and where they're located on our website. They're spread all across the state. So pretty much wherever you live, you can find an EV, and they're happy to help you out. Right now, we've got about 25 models that are eligible for the rebate. We're constantly looking, and we have our eyes on upcoming models, and we'll be updating that list as soon as we can. So be sure to check out our website for that. And then kind of alongside our rebate program, we do a fair amount of education and outreach to kind of raise awareness of all the benefits and facts that you heard from the previous speakers. And pre-COVID, we were really excited to be getting out on the ground, doing ride and drives and getting people in EVs to really experience the driving experience and to kind of talk to people. And as soon as it's safe to do that, we're really excited to kind of ramp up that campaign and get out all over the state to workplaces and different communities to really engage that excitement. We are building constantly information and resources on our website. So I encourage you to visit our website for tons of resources and frequently asked questions, information about the rebate and the vehicles that you might be thinking about. We've got a lot of good stuff on there. We run digital ads that you'll find if you're looking to buy a car, not necessarily an EV. We're really trying to kind of not only raise awareness of the rebate, but just raise awareness of the benefits and kind of all the good things that can come if you make that transition. And we're launching more and more radio ads to kind of build on this public service announcement campaign. We're really interested in just breaking down those barriers that various panelists have talked about, and just kind of making the EV transition seem more accessible and a little easier than one might think. Next slide, please. This is just a quick list of all electric vehicles that qualify for the rebate. You'll find this on the website. Next slide, please. These are all the plug-in hybrids. We recently added the RAV4, which is a crossover, and I've heard really great things about that. Next slide, please. And this hits some of the upcoming models that people are excited about, particularly the F-150 all-electric truck and the Rivian. So people can kind of go online and search for all the upcoming models, but all the biggest manufacturers are really focusing on EVs in the next couple of years. So we're excited about that. These are the other incentives that you should know about if you're considering an EV that can stack on top of our Efficiency Maine rebate. The federal tax credit has been mentioned, but it could be as high as $7,500 depending on the model that you're looking at. There's also federal tax credit for EV chargers, both at home and if you own a business or a public site. There's a tax credit for that running through December of this year, I believe. So it's just something to consider. And then I'll point out that many manufacturers offer additional discounts to stack on top of these other incentives, sometimes as big as $4,000, I was hearing recently. So be sure to ask your dealer about what deals are happening right now. Next slide, please. Speed it up to get to what we're doing on the charging side of the equation. Next slide, please. This kind of gives you an overview of everything that Efficiency Maine is doing alongside the vehicle rebates to reduce range anxiety, get people more comfortable charging in public and traveling across our vast state. We are almost done with the last location in our kind of phase 1 mission to expand fast charging, and Gordon did a nice job kind of explaining the different types of charging. And this first installment of our plan was to install 14 individual plugs for fast charging all across the state. The next slide, I'll show you kind of which locations those are. Yeah, you can see them right here. I'll go after we go through this list. Sorry, Barry. Phase 2 is kind of focused on expanding level 2 charging in public, which Gordon mentioned is kind of the most popular and practical charger to install to kind of expand this network as we advance EV adoption in the state. We've recently awarded funds that would help install 108 charging plugs. We've just released another RFP that will fund 60 more plugs. So we're building on that network, and we're really excited about that. We're encouraging workplaces, multi-unit dwellings, and public sites to apply for that funding. We're also going to be releasing another round of funds to install more fast chargers in the coming months, kind of to fill in the gaps that we haven't quite covered yet. In addition, we're working on an information and education pilot, kind of focusing on charging, how to install a charger at home, how to charge in public. If you're a prospective host site, what do you consider? You know, things like that. And that'll be coming out in the form of videos and guidebooks, manuals that you can download or get a hard copy of. So we're excited about that. We're working hard to get those out in the coming months. And then lastly, we're running a pilot program to kind of learn a little bit more about home charging behavior. So if you're thinking about buying an EV and you're going to install a home charger, feel free to reach out to us because this pilot offers a 15% discount on a smart charging unit called the Juice Box. And if you're willing to participate and basically just give us your charging data, when you're charging, how much, you can take advantage of that discount and keep it after the pilot's over. Next slide, please, really quickly. I just wanted to show the map of all the fast chargers that exist right now, and several of these are from the recent round of funding that Efficiency Maine awarded, and 6 out of 7 of these locations are complete and live. So if you're traveling to Skowhegan or under normal circumstances, you want to go up to Montreal, you can stop in Jackman and fill up. The North Windham site is almost done and should be done some point this fall. Next slide, please. And this is kind of highlighting the next corridor that we're interested in trying to fill in some more fast chargers, kind of up Route 1 along the coast, you know, Bangor, Ellsworth, MDI. So we're working on that and excited to hear feedback and meet the needs of today's EV drivers and to build the infrastructure to kind of support this adoption of EVs into the future. So that's what this kind of program is all about. It's not only today, but to build kind of the infrastructure that we'll need in the future, especially kind of with these aggressive Climate Council goals. We're really interested in preparing for that now so that people are comfortable buying EVs and we can accept that kind of acceleration into the future. So I think that's my time, but I'll leave it at that.
All right, Anastasia, that's great. Lots of information. I would definitely urge folks with further questions about any of those programs, go to the website. I think your website's beefed up quite a bit in terms of EV related information and it's kept current. So thanks for that. You guys are doing some great stuff to keep technology moving. This slide just shows some folks that you can reach out to. Sarah Milne-Knapp with the Greater BBCOG, Greater Portland Council of Governments, hosts a bunch of meetings for Drive Electric Maine. Anastasia and myself, I do a lot with Drive Electric Maine, which is a group of stakeholders that some of you may be aware of. We meet quarterly. You could email Greater Portland Council of Government if you wanted to sit in on that group. Get a lot of private individuals who are interested in this space to join us. So I urge you to go to the Greater Portland Council of Government website, find out more and get on our mailing list. So I want to thank the panelists for everything they did tonight. A lot of information has been covered. I'm looking at the chat. We've got we've got the breakout sessions, which were due to start right now, but we can switch over there almost at any time, Todd, unless you tell me otherwise. But I just
there were a couple of quick questions in the chat for the panelists before we jump into the breakout rooms.
Okay.
So wanted to just ask a couple of quick questions. One of the questions were, are there any all-wheel drive electric or hybrid models out there? Does anybody have an answer to that question?
Alex.
Yeah, there are. The Tesla Model 3 is a notable all-wheel drive model. They also have a compact SUV that is also all-wheel drive. And then there are also a few plug-in SUVs that are all-wheel drive as well that are available. So there are some options out there.
This is a common question, and what it really is, I think, what it's really getting at is how do these do in the winter? And I think a lot of them are front-wheel drive, and the batteries are very low because they're put in right around the frame. And you can put snow tires on these things and probably climb a tree because of the torque on them, even with just front-wheel drive. So certainly an important question for a lot of folks, especially in rural communities, where snow is no joke. But I've found in general, that the front-wheel drive versions seem to do pretty well. I mean, if anybody has similar experiences or wants to contradict that, feel free to weigh in.
I'll give you very briefly on the Hyundai Kona. I've had it for a year, so I went through last winter, and I put studded snow tires on it. It is front-wheel drive. It's a little higher clearance than the Ioniq, for example, but very similar to the Bolt in body shape and everything. It was fine in the winter. I've driven front-wheel drive vehicles, and I've driven the all-wheel drive, Subaru Outbacks, and the Kona did great.
Great.
Great. And just the only other general question, many of the other questions were specific to the models that are in the breakout room, so folks can ask their questions in the breakouts. But the other question was about the used car market that Alex, you started talking about. Could you just expand on that a little bit about, kind of what the used EV market is here in Maine currently?
Sure, yeah. There's actually a friend of mine has a specialty used dealership called Paris Auto Barn up in South Paris, Maine, and they specialize in eco-friendly cars, and they have plenty of used EVs available, very affordable. Other options too are getting them out of state. That's what I did. One of the sort of side effects that we've seen from all of these, wonderful incentives for new vehicles, and then also, regulations in other markets like California, where they're asking automakers to produce more EVs, is that, after these cars are a couple of years old, the value of them depreciates pretty significantly. So, for example, I was able to get my car at 2 years old with about 20,000 miles on it. It was in the high 20s, low 30s when it was brand new. And then, once you knock off all the incentives and things and accounted for the fact that it was so plentiful on the used market, I was able to get it for under $10,000. So very affordable, still had a warranty on it. And, again, because there's very few moving parts, very easy to maintain, you don't have to worry about getting a lemon, oh no, the previous owner forgot to change the oil all the time and now the engine's seized up. You don't have to worry about that with an electric car. So, conventional car dealerships often have used cars on the lot. I just saw one driving past a Volkswagen dealership the other day. They had one right out front, EV, at a very attractive price. So
It's a good point, Alex, about not being as worried about buying used when it's an EV because there's 90% fewer moving parts. I was going to also give a plug for Adam Lee's auto group, because I know they, in their Nissan dealer in particular, have done a good job, I think, of getting used Leafs on the lot. Some of those I've heard of some really good deals with some of the older models. So, obviously it's a supply and demand situation, but as we get more supply, I'm hoping that we'll see a much more robust used market in the
Oh,
state.
yeah. And another thing to point out, I'm not too old. And so, when I got out of college, I wasn't making enough money where I could take advantage of the new car federal tax credit. And so the used market is a great way to, someone else takes advantage of that tax credit, but you still are able to get the car at a reduced price. And you don't have to worry about, any of the tax headaches. So if you have lower income and, maybe that federal incentive wouldn't apply to you because your tax bill isn't big enough, this is a great way of taking advantage of that.
And I think a lot of them are undervalued. I think a lot of the residual value for used EVs, just because of the nature of the market, it's where it is, the maturity right now. A lot of the EVs that come into the used market are actually priced very competitively, which is another kind of advantage which may go away, as they become more of a commonplace vehicle. So, all right, thanks, Alex. That was good.
Great.
Anybody?
So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the breakout rooms now. So again, this is we're going to be breaking out into some breakout rooms so that you can learn about specific models. We have Paul LeBlanc, who's a Tesla Model 3 owner, and we have Jessica Hench from GP Cog, who's going to talk about the Chevy Bolts, and Gordon Beck will talk about the Hyundai Kona, and Becca from Lee Auto will talk about the the Nissan Leaf, and then Emily will talk about the Prius plug-in. And so I heard from about half of folks which breakout room they'd like to join. So I'm going to open all the rooms right now in a moment, and then you will be zipped off to your breakout room. In about 25 minutes, we're going to come back to this room, and then we'll all have the option to join another breakout room and learn about another EV model if we'd like to. So that's the process. For folks that have not told me which breakout room they'd like to join, you're going to stick here in the main room, and you're going to just tell me, and I will put you in a breakout room momentarily. But for now, I'm going to open all the breakout rooms, and you can go ahead and zip off to your breakout rooms, and we'll be back here in about 20-25 minutes. So for the folks who are here, still in the main room, I haven't heard which breakout room you'd like to join. So can I just kind of tick through this quickly? Brian Trask, which room would you like to join? And Brian, you're on mute. So you're all of you are muted currently. So if you could unmute yourself.
I'm leaving, so I won't be joining.
Okay, no problem. How about Carl Swanson? Carl, which breakout room would you like to join?
We do the Prius now.
Is there a Carl Swanson?
Yes,
No?
I'm right here. I'm not sure. I've got a Subaru Forester at the moment, and I was told that a RAV4 might be a substitute, but I'm looking for a substitute for my Subaru Forester.
Okay. Well, I am going to stick you in the Chevy Bolt room then. I think that might be a good alternative. David Halbert, which room would you like to join? David, so everybody's on mute. If you can unmute yourself and let me know. Ellen Asherman, what would you like to join?
The Prius.
The Prius, okay, great.
So I go?
Yep, so you can click that join breakout room. Should have just appeared on your screen. All right, how about Scott, Sheriff?
Yes, also the Prius as well.
Great. Let's see. How about Joe? Joe, which room would you like to join?
Nissan, please.
We don't have a Nissan option.
The Leaf?
Oh, the Leaf, I'm sorry, yes. Yep, I can add you to the Leaf. Although I'm not actually seeing you in this list. Give me one moment, I can zip you over. How about Helen Koch? Could you unmute yourself and let me know?
Thanks, but we're done for the evening.
Okay, sure. Then you can go ahead and sign off. Francis Hopcroft, if you can unmute and let me know.
Prius, please.
Prius, all right. Go to the Prius, all right. How about Stephen Robnet? And you're muted, Stephen, I can't hear you. Need to unmute yourself.
Chevy Bolt, please.
Sure. All right. I see someone that's just called iPad. Not sure who that is, but. And you're muted, ma'am. So.
It's Jane Littlefield and
hi,
the Prius.
Okay. Yep, I will send you to the Prius, Jane.
Thanks.
Sure thing. All right. How about Niles Parker? Can you unmute yourself and let me know which room you'd like to join?
Can I go in the Tesla, please?
Sure thing. Let's see. How about Patrick Kelly? Can you unmute yourself and let me know?
Can you look up the electric vehicle, probably Dakota?
Patrick Kelly, are you with us still?
No, I got it.
How about Lisa? Lisa, which room would you like to join?
The Dakota, please.
The Kona. Okay, sure thing. All right, so I have David Halbert. David, could you unmute yourself and let me know which room you'd like to join? Or Roger Turner, David Halbert, Patrick Kelly. Could any of you unmute yourself and let me know where you'd like to be sent to? Otherwise, I can just assign you to a room.
This is Roger. I'd like to see the Kona, please.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Patrick Kelly.
Yep, and where would you like to go, Patrick?
The Tesla.
All right, I'm sending you over there now. And David, are you with us? David Halbert? Hi, Norm. I see that you just joined us. We are in our breakout rooms learning about different EV models. If you let me know which breakout room you'd like to join, I can place you in it. And you are on mute, so I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself to let me know.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was in the Kona EV session and I turned on my mic and it kicked me out of Zoom. So if you
Oh,
could
sure,
reconnect
no
me to
problem.
that, it'd be great.
I can put you back in Kona if you'd like.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Oops, let's see. All right, so assign to Kona. All right, so you should be able to zip right over. Hi, Joe. Did you get kicked out of your breakout room? Joe, can you hear me? Oh, connecting to audio.
Well, that was fast.
Yeah,
That was fast.
When I close breakout rooms, it's supposed to give you a 60-second warning. So.
Oh yeah, it did.
Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your breakout. I assume all of you were with Paul learning about the Tesla. So I hope that you learned lots from Paul. And we're going to do another round of breakout sessions here. Just a minute. We're going to wait for everyone else to come back. But in the meantime,
What do I do?
let's see here.
Do you want to do an alternate? How about the leave?
So if you could mute yourself again, everyone
do
can
leave?
mute themselves. All right, so. So welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your first breakout session learning about different EV models. We're going to do a second round of breakout rooms here. If you have a preference for which model you'd like to learn about this time, please type it in the chat, and I can add you to that room. So please type in the chat which EV model you'd like to learn about next, and it will take me a few minutes to add you all, but we can certainly do it. So thanks for bearing with me.
While Todd is doing that, I thought I could just chime in. If anybody ever wants to buy a Hot Wheel car for 99 cents and say you get your own, they get so many models. This is my Tesla Model 3. This is the first one I ever got. So I got it for 99 cents at Rennie's. So you could probably get a Leaf or anything else. So there's my plug.
Everybody can drive electric.
There we go.
Good point. All right, so let's see here. So again, this is going to take me a moment, but thanks for bearing with me. If someone else can talk to avoid the awkward silence, that'd be appreciated.
I had a policy question, which some of the nerds here can handle for us. Have organizations been working to see that condo associations and rental landlords could set up charging stations for their tenants? Because that's gonna, not everyone has garages or private homes, obviously.
Paul, it's a good question. It's a really tough area, especially for retrofitting. Some states have passed what's called a charging bill of rights, in which an individual cannot be prevented from putting in charging at a condo or a homeowners association by the board. Because there's been some resistance in some of those facilities. That may or may not be economical if you're on the 4th floor and you got to run the conduit 4 stories down and then out into a dedicated parking. And the best answer is buy a condo at a place that planned ahead, has outlets by the parking spaces. But if you already are in a condo and looking to put in something, I think you have to have a heart-to-heart with your association and try to figure out the most economical way to provide it, and maybe it's a common area. There's lots of potential opportunities there, but it's really be really difficult.
I guess I'm suggesting that we get the legislature to incentivize landowners, condo associations to do this. And, just like they provide a single set of washing machines and dryers, not every one apartment's going to want it. Your septic tank can't handle it, that kind of thing. There's reasons it makes your property more valuable, but also we want, as good citizens, to encourage people to be using electric.
Well, I think it's true. I mean, Maine is kind of unique comparatively. I don't think there's there's not as much density of, in terms of housing. It doesn't mean that your issue is not important, but I think that there's not as many people impacted by that issue, which means from a politician standpoint, maybe it's not as pressing. But I don't think it's a heavy lift from a policy standpoint if you have the right folks that are pushing it. I wouldn't be surprised if, like a lot of the building codes that are going to get revised, that similar efforts are going to be made for multi-unit dwelling type situations.
All right, so I just opened all of the rooms, so you're welcome to zip off to your next breakout room. And for folks who did not let me know in the chat, we'll give it just a second here. All right, so let's start with you, Alex. Which room would you like to know? You want to go back to Prius or?
Emily's, and I can help answer questions there.
Sure. Send you back to the Prius. All right, so if all of you can take yourself off mute so I can chat with you, that would be helpful. How about Dean? Dean, which model would you like to learn about? How about Ellen? Ellen, which room would you like to learn about?
Well, Alex and Emily helped me so much and told me, I didn't even realize about the plug-in hybrid. So I think I want a plug-in hybrid sedan. So where should I go?
So the Prius plug-in is what you're looking for. Yep.
Well, I've been there. Oh, okay. Well, I'll go back there.
You want to go back to the Prius? Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
sure. She was delightful.
Scott, how about you? Where would you like to go?
To the Hyundai.
The Kona? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Paul. Well, this is the end of our program, so
Okay.
you're able to sign off.
Okay, good. Thank you then.
All right,
Thanks
you're
very
very
much for
welcome.
this.
Enjoy your evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi, Wayne. Hi, Carl. So this is the end of our program, so no other content. So I guess everyone's coming back. Great. Well, welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed your second breakout room. This concludes our evening's program, so we hope that you got a lot of value out of this evening. Again, we would have loved to be with you in person for our annual ride and drive in Portland and South Portland, but we did our best to recreate that experience. So thanks again for joining us. Barry, any last words?
Next year in Portland at Back Cove. I think we've already reserved it. I think the date will be at the end of September. We'll broadcast it. Thanks, Todd, for you taking your time.
Barry, could we bring up the plug-in charging issue of the hybrids possibly blocking and maybe suggesting a second plug for plug-in hybrids at each charger? I think it's really important because we could just overload all these 3 chargers with plug-in hybrids.
I think it's more of an issue, John, with the basic chargers where there's really no technological control to the access. I think that's one thing. I think basic chargers are open to being abused and just people, kind of behaving thoughtlessly. So something I'm aware of. I think it's going to become less of a problem, quite frankly, as the cars deploy and there's more infrastructure out there. And if you have a particular location that you frequent where this has become an issue, like you said, in Bar Harbor, et cetera, I would talk to the site host about it. See what suggestions, they might.
It looks like Gordon has a response as well. And Gordon, you're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to mention CEBE has been working on charging etiquette that would address some of those issues, John. And there are easily available things like hand tags, and I know you've seen them in Bar Harbor, where a Tesla will plug in there, but they'll leave a note saying, "Hey, if I'm full, here's the number. Call me. I'll come and unplug." But it's still works in progress. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I had a particularly nasty time in Bar Harbor where a guy, I actually caught him blocking me with a plug-in hybrid, and he refused to move even though he owned a Nissan Leaf at home. And he could sympathize with my problem. He wouldn't leave. So it's weird. They feel like they have a right to this free charging. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. It could be a problem. We could have way too many plug-in hybrids, and then it'll just overload us.
Well, to Barry's point, I think there'll be more and more networked chargers, and in fact, some of the basic ones will start being retrofitted to control that access. And
I think a plug-in hybrid who has to pay won't plug in because they have gas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in general, how often do you run into congestion at charging stations?
Often. Ellsworth and Bar Harbor are terrible. Bar Harbor particularly bad because they're charging for parking. And so they can they can avoid the parking fees by plugging into the Bar Harbor free chargers. And that's it's a really convenient charger. That Abbey Museum is right downtown.
Yeah.
So it's a real problem.
John, sorry,
Jackson Lab will not put in chargers, so I'm forced to use that charger.
John, in fairness, I would just say that I get feedback from various host sites, as you might imagine, and you tend to be in the minority of people who've had issues with blocking, from my limited experience. So I don't think the congestion issue is as universal.
Well, I'd also say, Gordon, that if there were DC fast chargers, that wouldn't be an issue because plug-in hybrids can't use those, and those are for longer distance travel. That's going to solve the issue. So
Yeah.
I think it's a resource constraint problem that's going to go away as greater, more infrastructure gets in there.
Yeah, I was going to say what I would worry about is planning a long trip and counting on a particular location for my recharge and then not finding it available. Is that a realistic worry?
Can be. I mean, it can be. I mean, what I found is going to Massachusetts. I have a route a circuit that I use when I know that I need to charge. And there are occasions there'll be another car there, or it's down. I think there's an uptime issue with some of these stations still. They only have one as opposed to they should have two, just in case they need one is out of commission. You always have a backup. I think there's more redundancy in being built into the charging network by bit. But I think if you go to Massachusetts, there's actually a lot more DC fast charging opportunities. So I've never been in a situation of not finding charging. It may be not as convenient as I'd like, but I've always been able to find it.
And what would happen if you got stranded? Does AAA come and give you a charge?
If I was in Oregon, AAA would have its own mobile charging unit that could come and charge me. But in Mass, I don't know that AAA has deployed that. So no, I haven't had it happen, Wayne. Thankfully, I've seen plugins, getting hauled on, and to me that would be the ultimate sign of defeat, and I probably would buy a bicycle.
So you'd have to call a tow truck.
Yeah. Two quick points. One is the EV fast chargers if you're planning a long trip, you're probably looking for EV for fast chargers. You go to the ChargePoint app. Mulligan's in Manchester is available. I can join the wait list. There are definitely ways to deal with it if you do a little bit of planning. And the other thing I would say is, on my particular car, I have roadside assistance as part of what I leased. I run out of juice. I called, I get Blue Link on my app, and they're going to get a tow truck and tow me to some place to charge. But I think Barry's idea is better.
Well, the one thing I'm concerned about, Gordon, is if I get a flat, because none of these cars have full size. Don't even have spares. They have those canister things.
Yeah.
I don't know. For the life of me, I'm not sure I trust those.
I know that's a concern.
Yeah. Knock on wood, that has not happened.
Hey, can you folks hear me?
Yes.
All right. One comment. Gentleman was just talking Jackson Lab and chargers. Jackson Lab is putting in chargers, and they will be installed in the next 60 days or so. So
nice.
Good.
Is that public access?
Unfortunately, not. Our campus isn't public access, so they're for employee use or visitors.
Do you know if are they basic chargers or are they network chargers?
No, they're going to be Clipper Creek basic chargers. We're still working out a pay structure for employees if they want to use it. I don't know what it'll end up being, but there may be, there may not be.
All right. Well, good for you guys.
Norm, will those be? Will there be chargers at the Ellsworth campus also?
Ellsworth is next year.
Great.
Next year. So California and Bar Harbor this year, Ellsworth and Connecticut next year.
So Norm, is it a gated parking area?
Yes, unfortunately it is.
Because I'm just thinking I've had workplace chargers where after the end of the day, then they're made available for public charging. So
yeah, no, they don't want to give up any free kilowatts.
So Norm, how many charges was it? 4 or 2?
There are 4. There's either 4 or 6. I think it's actually 6 stations going into Bar Harbor.
Oh, nice.
Yay. I love it. I've waited 2 years. Thank you.
So Gordon, getting back to what you were saying before about a long trip, if you use the app, do you essentially get a reservation at a particular charger that's reserved for you?
At least on the ChargePoint network chargers, I believe you can make that reservation. I've never done it, so I can't speak from experience.
Okay.
But that's where all this technology and connectivity is going.
Yep.
No question about it.
To my knowledge, there's not been a homicide related to charging rage yet.
That's good.
Yeah.
Maybe broken bones, but no homicides that I'm aware of. So. Well, I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but it's now 8:12. I might bow out, but I want to just tell everybody I really appreciate your interest in this topic, and I urge you to try a car, test drive one of the cars if you found one in the breakout session that was interesting. That's it's the whole ball of wax. To actually get in the car is what sells these vehicles, in my experience. So.
Does anybody know if you could rent or lease a Tesla?
You can lease them. They're not cheap.
Yeah.
Go on their website, and they do used. They keep their used inventory, on their website, as well as the lease arrangements. Last time I checked, they were like in the $600 to $800 a month range.
Can you rent any electric cars in Maine?
You mean like through
Hertz or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah, you can in some states, but I haven't found that. I don't know if Maine has gotten any. I know some states, like Orlando, I think has got Hertz does plug-in rentals. I know Oregon did before I left there 5-6 years ago. Actually, longer than that, 6-7 years ago. So yeah, some of these rental places are converting, and that's not a bad way to try them out. If you're interested in the Bolt, Greater Portland Council of Governments has a Bolt they will loan out for free. So that's another sort of low-hanging fruit way to get a little longer access to testing the technology.
I noticed in the Leaf that they had to have Nissan service it. But I thought some of the different brands, you could have your own local mechanic if they were trained or whatever.
Yeah, Karen, it's really early. There's like, I think I've heard of one independent Tesla maintenance company. It's called the Electric Garage. It's down in Seabrook, New Hampshire, of all places. And that's like in the United States. So this is still really early in terms of developing an independent mechanic type network. On the flip side, the maintenance on these things is almost like plugging a computer in and asking the car how it's feeling, so, I mean, if you have the right computer, I bet maintenance is not that difficult, to figure out if you're a reasonable mechanic.
So basically all of the EVs, you have to go to the dealers.
So far, that's
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times they're just upgrading the software and they don't even charge you. I mean, it's not, maintenance on these is like really not very significant most of the time. So.
Yeah.
But I guess they're not going to
The
last
warranty.
forever. Something is going to go wrong at some point, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, the maintenance is an issue for dealers. I mean, that's where they make their money. And that frankly has been part of the reasons why I think that the dealers have been harder to convince, other than Tesla, the dealers who know, have mechanics. I mean, this is no joke. It's going to be painful for them. So.
Right.
All right. Well, I am a sucker for questions, but you guys have a good night, okay?